Hi, this video looks at Edexcel theme 2, the economic influences section of that unit, and I'm going to start off this series of videos on 2.5.1, which is a big topic, by looking particularly at the business cycle. First of all, though, let's define what we actually mean by an economy. So an economy is a system by which society's scarce resources are allocated to distributing goods and services. So we consider the main purpose of economic activity to satisfy consumer wants and needs. That's why economic activity is undertaken, in order to satisfy consumers' wants and needs. And society has certain scarce resources. It's got the individuals, the labour in that economy. It's got machinery and factories and things like that. And it's got land. And it needs to allocate those resources to distributing the goods and services that people want. And it's a very long discussion, but you can choose to do that via the government, or you can choose to do it via businesses. Now let's just assume that the UK is by and large a market economy where businesses provide those goods and services that people want. We can measure the size of the economy by calculating the total value of goods and services that have been produced in an economy in a period of time, so a year. So in other words, to calculate the size of the economy, what you do is you calculate all of the stuff that's been made by every business in the economy and been sold to consumers, and you add up the value of all of the laptops sold, all of the apples sold, all of the cars sold, right? All of that stuff you add together and you get a monetary value for the total amount of goods and services that have been produced in an economy in a period of time, and that is how we measure the size of the economy. It may be easier to visualize, so let's just assume that there are two economic agents for now in our economy. Every arrow you see will represent a flow of money. Households buy goods and services off businesses, and there is a flow of money there that is called consumption. Okay, but businesses actually give money back to households. Businesses might rent property. Businesses effectively borrow the labour from households. In other words, people work in businesses, so they get wages. And some people own shares in businesses, so they get a share of the profit, the dividend. So there is a flow of money going from households to businesses and back again. And we want to measure one of these flows, all right? We measure this flow, all right, because that is the total value of goods and services produced in an economy over a period of time. Okay, but basically the more money that's flowing around this interaction between households and businesses, the bigger the size of the economy. Now this is simplified a little bit because we've got some other economic agents. We have banks who take money out of the economy when people save, and people can borrow money, and that puts money back into this circular flow. We have the government, who are another economic agent, who tax households and businesses and take money out of this circular flow, but the government also puts money back in when they spend on education and infrastructure, like building roads and stuff. So this flow of money is influenced not only by households and businesses, but by banks, government, and finally, of course, we are in an international world where there are countries like France and the US and Nigeria, and we trade goods and services with those countries, and money is taken out of the economy when we import stuff, but money is put back into our economy when we export stuff. So the economy is this bit here, this flow of money here, all right? Every arrow represents a flow of money, but essentially the more money we've got going around this inside bit here in the UK, the bigger the size of the economy. Okay, so let's go on to the business cycle. So the business cycle, basically what has happened to the economy over time is you can put a very nice trend rate line of best fit here where you plot GDP against time. So GDP was how we measured the economy, by the way, and time is going forward, and we can see this nice straight line where basically the economy has grown over time. But it's not quite that simple. That's our line of best fit. In reality, we have periods when the economy is doing very well and it's growing faster than the trend rate of growth, than the average. And we have periods where the economy slows down and it actually grows less quickly. And in fact, it even shrinks sometime and that flow of money gets smaller. Okay, and we go below the trend rate of growth. This period where the economy is functioning and it's growing at a faster rate than the trend rate of growth, this is called a boom. Okay, a boom period during the economy where we're producing more output. There's more jobs available because we need people to make that output. All right, output being goods and services. There's rising demand because people have got jobs. But that comes at the cost of prices going up. You guys know from theme 1 where you've done demand and supply, if there's high demand for product, it pushes the prices up. And we see that across the whole economy. A recession does have a technical definition, but for our purposes, let's just say it's when the economy is not doing very well and might even have started shrinking. In that case, we are going to get falling output, like the amount of goods and services being produced by businesses is going down. Therefore, they don't need workers and there's increased unemployment. Because people don't have jobs, there's falling demand. And again, you guys will know that if demand falls, there's less pressure on prices and prices can fall. So this is our economic cycle here. We can define the business cycle, which is the key term that Edexcel use, as a period over which there is economic expansion and contraction, which is measured by GDP growth. And the business cycle lasts from this point here through our boom to the other side of our recession here. So that's the business cycle there. And there are a couple of other stages because I've simplified things a bit. So the boom is when the economy is doing really, really well. The slowdown starts when the boom period starts to trend downwards. We then enter a recession where we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. In other words, if the economy shrinks for 6 months, that's called a recession. And then after the recession, we get a recovery. Now, at each of these stages of the economic cycle, there will be a different impact on demand for goods and services. Okay, it will either be rising or falling. There will be an impact on employment. Okay, because employment is determined by the level of demand. The more demand there is during a boom period, the higher the levels of employment. Prices will be determined by this. Generally, when the economy is doing really, really well, and there's lots of demand for stuff, it puts pressure, upward pressure on prices, which is called inflation. It will have an impact on imports and exports. Generally, the better our economy is doing, the more stuff we import from abroad because people have got jobs and they want to import BMWs and iPhones and things from abroad. And our exports might actually fall when the economy is doing really well, and it's the opposite when the economy is doing badly. And finally, the stage of the business cycle will impact on the amount of tax and spending that the government do. So that should be government tax and spending, really. The better the economy is doing, the more tax the government collects and the less it spends because people have all got jobs and don't need welfare. And it's the opposite way around when the economy is not doing well. So there is a bit of tension in the economy. When economic growth is going well, it goes hand in hand with high levels of employment, which is great. Loads of people have jobs, but there can be a trade-off against inflation because when the economy is doing really well during a boom period, during a recovery, that tends to put upward pressure on prices, and I'll look at inflation in the next video.